Thank you, Lou. The last question? Non fanno. Beh, qua abbiamo il secchione della classe, voi tutti a settembre, cioè dell'anno prossimo però, perché è un anno.
Voce del unconscious, collective unconscious.
Ok, va bene, non vergogna,
Just to know, how did you build the soundtrack? I mean, the choice of the songs, and why Jolly Hooker didn't record Boom Boom?
As to why John Lee Hooker didn't, I have no idea. But the choice of the songs was I think there was a lot of thought put into it. You know, sometimes the reason that you don't do something is simply something as simple as a copyright, and they just don't want to pay more money. In the second movie, there's a scene where I'm whistling when I have the gas can, and I whistled O Sole Mio. And man, I whistled it really great, I have to tell you. And the reason that I whistled it is because with my wife, we have an inside private joke with some lyrics that I wrote for O Sole Mio that are private between us, but I whistled it so that she would laugh, you know. Then when we go to the premiere of the movie in Cannes, I'm sitting right in front of John Landis, and when it gets to that scene and I'm walking up, instead of hearing, I hear, and I turned to Landis and I said, "What's that?" He says, "O Sole Mio is still under copyright, so we didn't want to pay." I said, "Well, you could have called me and had me whistle something else, so maybe I would get some money." You know? But no, there was a lot of care taken. And as far as the soundtrack goes, the soundtrack is live. We recorded everything in the studio, but there's no overdubbing. It's all live. And I remember, for instance, when Aretha sang with us, Aretha was wary. She had reservations about the quality of the Blues Brothers band. She didn't know anything about it. And Ray Charles told us later that she had called him to ask him whether she could have confidence in the band. And I've played with Aretha many times. Aretha, during rehearsals, it's the equivalent of driving a Ferrari at 50 kilometers an hour. That's the way Aretha rehearses. Then when the performance happens, the Ferrari is to the floor, you know. And so when we recorded it, the first take, she did different than we had rehearsed. So then our rhythm section had to figure out how she changed it. And then we did a take, and she loved it. But then our horn section said, "No, we've figured out our parts, let's do it one more time with everybody playing together." And the third time when we played it, when we were listening to the playback, I remember Aretha was dancing. And so we knew that we were okay.
That was okay.
I'm happy that people still love it after all these years. You know, when we saw it, the premiere, we were really disappointed. The band was very disappointed in the movie because there were many scenes of interacting with Danny and John that were cut. For instance, when you see the police car, the Bluesmobile, with the big speaker on top of the car, well, that's a joke that there's no answer to. I mean, there's no setup to, because there was a scene where we walk into a schoolyard, or maybe it's a fire station or something, and we look up, and on top of this pole is that giant speaker, and we take it down, we steal it, you know, cut. And there were other music scenes that were cut. So when we first saw the movie, we were really disappointed, but it's lasted.
Perché vedo, abbiamo altri 5 minuti, vedo che ovviamente ci sono dei colleghi che sono appena arrivati, e quindi invito voi che siete appena arrivati, senza morire per il fiatone per la corsa fatta, se volete fare l'ultima domanda, così vi togliete la soddisfazione di essere arrivati prima di vedere il film.
Or I could say everything again.
Quindi, se avete qualche domanda in particolare, abbiamo parlato molto della musica, raccontato qualche aneddoto, comunque abbiamo anche tutto registrato, quindi non vi preoccupate che poi lo vedrete. E se avete qualche altra domanda particolare?
La domanda spontanea è sull'edizione in Blu-ray, come hanno lavorato sull'audio, visto che per la musica anche, se c'è stato un processo particolare di rimasterizzazione.
Ma non credo che sia stato coinvolto.
Magari ha visto il risultato finale, insomma, per vedere com'è stata...
No, non credo che
Cioè, allora...
lo puoi chiedere.
Sulla musica,
sì.
Se c'è qualche influenza anche italiana, visto che è venuto qui, come pensi della nostra musica rispetto a...
Yes. If you have any Italian influence on your music, and what do you think of Italian music?
Well, I'm certain that I have an Italian influence. I mean, at least, if nothing else, subconsciously, because my family is from the Sud Tirol, from Trentino, or Alto Adige, and you know, in the patterns of immigration that were characteristic, my grandfather came to the United States in 1908, I think, or something like that, and he came from that small region. And from that area where he immigrated to Alliance, Ohio, a small industrial town in Ohio, there were enough subsequent immigrants from Italy to form a Tyrolean band. They had a band of 28 musicians, and they were all from Trentino, from Stordo and Darzo and Bagolino. And so, you know, so I was hearing that music when I was a kid, and you know, my Uncle Ed played accordion. My father was a wonderful musician, a clarinet player and saxophone player. And then when I was growing up, you know, hearing the music that they would play when we would get together for family reunions. So I was always hearing Italian music. So whether it's an influence that I can directly say this is that, I can say that later on when I went to university and started listening to Joe Green, Giuseppe Verdi, then my Italian influence really got stronger, you know, because I love Verdi's music, for instance. And I love Renato Carasone.
Grazie Lu. E io a questo punto inviterei Davide Moscato, l'amministratore delegato di Universal, che voleva salutarvi e a questo punto anche magari dirà qualche parola sul Blu-ray, visto che come è giusto. Prego Davide.
Beh, la prima cosa io volevo ringraziare Lu per essere venuto in Italia. Credo che condividere con noi i racconti del backstage di Blues Brothers sia qualcosa di speciale. Sul Blu-ray noi siamo orgogliosi di averlo editato con un audio DTS su round 5.1, quindi il massimo che si può avere in questo momento, alta definizione, quindi il prodotto si sente meglio, il contenuto, e si vede benissimo. Come appassionato di musica il test me lo sono fatto, è veramente di qualità eccezionale. Quando ci hanno chiesto 1 anno e mezzo fa di produrre il Blu-ray dei Blues Brothers, siamo partiti subito. Abbiamo, come Italia, ma anche come nelle altre nazioni, perché pensavamo che non solo, sapete che l'anno scorso erano 30 anni, quest'anno sono 31, abbiamo fatto poi il Blues Brothers, il sequel in Blu-ray e Animal House, quindi volevamo fare anche tutta la trilogia di Landis, perché ci sembra una bella cosa per noi, per chi è cresciuto forse con questi film. Il Blu-ray, mi spiace essere tecnico perché io non sono un tecnico, ma è anche in versione, abbiamo pensato che per il mercato italiano fosse importante averlo con una copia digitale, quindi oggi lo possiamo vedere sia sul televisore di casa ma anche sul PC sotto Windows, e direi che abbiamo offerto un prodotto entusiasmante per il consumatore. È uscito il 21 di settembre e sta avendo dei primi risultati interessanti. Però veramente no, è lui il protagonista, non solo il Blu-ray, e veramente lo ringrazio perché
No, now I have to go out and buy a Blu-ray player.
Yes, you don't have? No. Do it, please.
Io vi ringrazio tutti e allora vi invito, il concerto inizierà intorno alle 10:30, ovviamente sapete dove è il Circo degli Artisti, noi vi aspettiamo tutti e insomma è una serata di festa, quindi ci auguriamo di vedervi là a breve.